One client dinner can completely undo a week's worth of perfect training and nutrition. I've seen it happen countless times for many of my clients. They'll be crushing their workouts and nailing their nutrition from Monday to Friday, and when Thursday evening rolls around, they've got a client dinner at some fancy steakhouse, and by the time Friday morning rolls around, they've completely derailed their progress. They feel ashamed, guilt-ridden, and bloated, and feel like they're back at square one. But here's the thing. I've helped dozens of clients navigate these client dinners without derailing any of their progress. In fact, just last month, one of my clients managed to lose weight during a week where he had 3 client dinners. In this video, I'm going to show you the exact system that I teach to my corporate clients to help them to navigate client dinners without derailing their progress. In this system, I'm going to show you the exact system that I teach to my corporate clients to navigate client dinners without gaining a single pound. More importantly, I'll teach you how to do it without looking like the boring guy who orders a salad while everyone else enjoys themselves. Because what I'm about to share goes against everything that you've been taught by the fitness industry. So here is the exact 5-step system that I teach to all of my corporate clients to navigate their client dinners like pros. The first step of my system is called restaurant reconnaissance. Now, before I go into this step, I want to tell you guys one big mistake that I see so many people making. The number one mistake that people make before going to client dinners is not knowing what they're going to eat. They don't have a clue about what restaurant they're going to, what's on the menu, and what they're going to eat. The reason why this is a big mistake is because if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. You have to know what is on the menu so you could make selections ahead of time to make sure you stay on track. And that leads me right into the first point here. You have to make sure you look at the menu before you arrive. This is going to give you a good idea of the types of options that you've got, so that by the time you go into the restaurant, you'll know exactly what to order. The second point I want to make here is to identify your anchor meal. Now, the truth is, if you want to stay in shape, you need to make sure you focus on protein and vegetables. Whenever you go out to a restaurant, make sure that the anchor of your meal is a source of protein and some vegetables. For example, you could choose the steak with some vegetables, some green vegetables, or you could choose a type of fish like sea bass or sea bream or salmon. There's so many different options that you can choose from. Just make sure that the anchor of your meal is a protein and vegetable source. Now finally, the final point I want to make is that you have to master your starters. The truth is, so many of you guys go to restaurants and the first thing you do as soon as you sit down is you order the bread or something that is high in carbohydrates. The reason why you don't want to do this is because if you have something high in carbohydrates at the beginning of the meal, this is going to spike your blood sugar levels, causing you to crave even more and making you eat more. This is why so many people overeat whenever they go to client dinners. Take my advice, order something high in protein or fats and share it with your colleagues around you. That way your blood sugar level is going to remain stable and you're going to be able to consume less throughout the entire meal. The second step of my 5-step system is called the alcohol strategy. And here's where things get interesting, because I'm sure a lot of you are probably expecting me to say something like, you guys can't drink alcohol, it's just not allowed. But the truth is, you can still incorporate alcohol, especially if it's something that's already part of your lifestyle. The only thing I would say is to make sure to do it in moderation. With that being said, the points I want to make here are as follows. Firstly, I've got what I call the 2-drink rule. So ideally, when you go out with clients, you don't want to have more than 2 drinks. At the end of the day, you're not going out on a bender or a stag do, so there's really no need to have more than 2 drinks. As long as you do this, that's going to keep the calories under control and enable you to stay on track with your fitness regime. Smart alcohol swaps. I know a lot of you guys like to have your beers and your Guinness and your wines, etc. But the truth is, beers and wines in particular are extremely high in calories, and if you have too many, they are going to derail your progress. So what I'd suggest instead is to swap out the beer or the wine for some smarter alternatives, which would include things like spirit-based alcohol options such as vodka, gin, whiskey. If you have these with, for example, a Diet Coke, that's going to dramatically reduce the amount of calories while still being able to give you that buzz that you get from drinking. You can also opt, for example, to go for alcohol-free options. So they've got alcohol-free beers that you can get nowadays, which will enable you to still be able to enjoy your time with your colleagues and your peers without having to have the alcohol content. And then finally, handling peer pressure. At the end of the day, if you're on a fitness journey, you're doing it for yourself. So you always have to remember the simple fact that you are the person who's responsible for what you put inside of your body, no one else. And you're the person who has to live with the consequences of your own decisions. So make sure you always keep this top of mind whenever you go to a client dinner. Don't let peer pressure make you make a decision that you're not proud of. Okay, the third step of my system is what I call the plate blueprint. Now, this is what separates the pros from the amateurs. Now, firstly, I want to talk about what I call the visual portion control system. So this is the system that I teach to all of my corporate clients to make sure that when they look at a plate of food that they order from a restaurant, they can ensure that it's going to keep them on track. So when you take a plate of food, for example, right, you want to make sure that half of the plate is full of vegetables, a quarter of the plate is full of proteins, and the remaining quarter is full of carbohydrates. The reason why I suggest this is because you want to make sure that you stay full and you want to make sure that you stay satiated. The best way to do this is to focus on proteins and vegetables. So long as you've got enough proteins and vegetables on your plate, you're going to remain full, satisfied, and that's going to prevent you from overeating. The second part I want to talk about is what I call the protein prioritization strategy. Now here, all I'm asking and all I tell my clients to do is to consume their protein before their carbohydrates. The reason why this is important is because the timing in which you consume macronutrients between proteins, carbs and fats impacts your blood sugar spike, and that's going to impact how hungry you feel and how full you feel afterwards. So by starting with protein, that's going to enable you to get a smaller blood sugar spike, which is going to prevent hunger and cravings later on, leading you to not overeat. And then finally, managing sources and hidden calories. The truth is, whenever you go to restaurants, one of the things that derails a lot of people is having too many sources and not managing hidden calories. Hidden calories can come in the form of oils, butters, different sugars in some of the sauces you have. So make sure that you bear this in mind whenever you go out to eat. Limit the sources and make sure that if you order a salad, try not to get one that's too high in oils. And whenever you get an oil-based sauce, try to use it very sparingly because the calories can add up very quickly. Now, most people believe they need to choose between results and relationships, but I completely disagree with that. 5-step system is called the professional approach. Now, firstly, I want to talk about how to stay social while staying on track. The truth is, fitness isn't your entire life. You've got so many other aspects of your life, so it's always important to remember this. Whenever people invite you to social events or client dinners, you have to make sure that you don't say no just because you think you have to stay on track. It is possible to stay on track while still eating out and navigating client dinners. And always remember that at the end of the day, your memories are very important and you don't want to refuse a day out just because you want to stay on track. Secondly, I want to talk about making modifications without being. When you go out to a restaurant or you're out at a client dinner or you're out with friends and family, always remember that it is possible to make modifications to your orders so that it fits your regime, but you don't have to be difficult about it, okay? So if you can't eat gluten or dairy, you don't have to make a big fuss about it. Just make sure you know what you can consume, know what your order is, and order it politely without trying to impose your beliefs on anybody else. Finally, this approach impresses your clients more. If you're somebody who is strong about their beliefs and their convictions and make sure that their orders at restaurants reflects their convictions, that's going to impress your clients even more. At the end of the day, everybody respects somebody who sticks to their principles. Okay, cool. Okay, what's the hook actually? The final step of my 5-step system is the recovery protocol. And this is exactly what's going to keep you consistent in the long term. Now, the truth is, right, let's say you do go out on a client dinner or you do go to a restaurant for an evening out and you end up over consuming. Maybe you have too much dessert, you drink too much, whatever the case may be. I just want you to understand that it's not the end of the world, okay? And let me explain why. Firstly, there's things you can do to recover straight away. I call it the next day hydration strategy. The morning after a massive dinner, make sure you stay hydrated. So wake up, and before you consume anything else, make sure you hydrate with at least 1 liter of water and electrolytes. This is going to keep you hydrated, especially after you've just had so much alcohol, which would have dehydrated you. Secondly, to get right back on track immediately, here's what I recommend. I recommend you take out a piece of pen and paper and write down your routine for the week. So write down the workouts you're going to complete, write down the food you're going to eat. The reason why this is important is because the act of writing it down allows you to set your intention for how the week is going to go. And you'd be so surprised by how accurately your week plays out in comparison to what you've written down. It sounds really simple, but don't knock it till you try it. Now, the final thing that I want you to understand is that the guilt that you feel after going off track oftentimes ends up being even worse than the actual dinner. There have been so many times in my life, as well as the lives of some of my clients, whereby the actual guilt and the shame you feel from going off track makes you go down into a spiral, which ends up making you make even less progress in the long term. If you can just manage the 24-hour reset and make sure that you don't let one bad day turn into a bad week, you can be consistent in the long term, and that's what it's all about. Okay. If you want the complete cheat sheet with everything I just covered, plus the exact phrases for modifying orders and my emergency recovery protocol, just DM me the word menu on Instagram. The link to my Instagram is in the description box below, and I'll send you the complete guide my clients use to stay lean and crush it in their careers.